Mm. Aha. Hi Jan, could you just let me know you can see and hear me? It took ages for it to transfer to the web, so I'm never quite certain what's going on. Cool. Let's just do a little bit of erasing. If I can find a rubber while we're waiting. That'll be in there, so we'll not worry about it. We'll not be worried. There we are, we'll just we'll leave it like that. By the time we've inked around the edges, we will not know what we're up to. Hi Faith, hi Jan. So fortunately it is raining, but the thunder seems to have stopped for the moment, which is always a blessing, and it's not raining too heavily. So hopefully, with a bit of luck, the world's going to behave tonight and we will be able to hear each other, which is always positive, I think. I think it's always positive. I'll just wait a little bit because we're a little bit ahead of time, and that is cool. Hi Serena, welcome. Oh. I've done a moderate amount of prep this evening because as per typical, I've got quite a big project. Why should that surprise anyone? Because I never do anything by house, because why would you? I really would like to find a rubber. There we are. Let's see if we can find one over here. Oh yeah, that'd be better. She says throwing stuff around the place, which is even not so good. Yeah. Cool, I can just do a little bit of rubbing out and get rid of those horrible black lines whilst we're at it. Because we had to do a bit of drawing to cut these pieces out. Hi Jill, how are you? Well, I haven't cut that one very straight, have I? Let me just do a little bit of evening up there, so it doesn't look quite so wonky donk. Probably make it worse, but hey ho. There we are, that'll do. That will do. We can always straighten stuff up if we need to. So, there we are. We are just gone 7. Let's clear some of that mess that we've just made. So I am going to be making the book box up. Hi Sam, I'm watching but not telling us. I'm mid-ironing furnishings for the newly painted room. Well, well done on finishing your room, and yes, that's way more important than typing for that. But thank you for letting me know what you're doing, because I was wondering whether you're making sure that we hadn't really started too much ahead of the live. Now then, so let us get started. So I have some bits that hi Sarah. So I have pre-started, partly because they're a bit fiddly for cutting round. So there are 2 elements in the book box that are like this, which is all very well and good. And I'm wanting to to cover these with something that looks a bit like faux leather. But do I have any faux leather? Nah, of course not. Why would I have faux leather? You know, because that would just be sensible, wouldn't it? But I do have some tricks up my sleeve for making faux leather. So, there we are. So hence these two pieces. So dear, oh dear, mucky. So we're going to do these pieces, and then we're going to go off to the book. Yeah, off to the next thing. So if I pop that out, reverse these, I'll pop that over there, and then I can move these so they're more central in the thing. And I've got some products here that probably haven't been seen very often. So so I've just cut these from stone paper, and I'm going to give them a bit of a wrinkle because that's what I feel like doing. And you might wonder, what on earth got to be done? But here we are. And then I can straighten these out and give them a little bit of a flatten, she says, having tied them up. So this will give me some wrinkles and some creases and some texture, and give these, which why I wasn't so fussy about the rest of it. But there we are. So we'll give that a little bit of that, and we'll sort of squash it a bit flatter from there, and we'll do the same with this one. And so as I say, this is stone paper. It has two sides, a more textured side and a not so textured side. So I'm clearly going to be working with the more textured side up, but it's up to you. The finish really is, you know, really much whatever you want to make of it. So let's just give this a good scrumple, because the creases again will help with the overall finished effect. And I know that seems a strange thing to do, but hey ho, which is the correct side, it doesn't really matter. There we are. Okay, so we've now got some scrumpled stone paper, and this technique is about layering and layering colours. So I have some Lasur gel, Lasur liquid. You could use the gels, but this is very liquid, and this will give like a base colour, and then we'll build the texture from there up. So let me just give this a good scribble over everything. And it's, I'm going to say, it's about layering the colours, and then we have to dry it in between the layers. So yeah, the heat gun is going to be coming to the fore. Great in this weather, but again, needs must, as Sam has just pointed out. Sometimes you just have to do things because it has to be done. So there we are. That'll give that a good thing. Hi Caroline. So it's dark. It went dark here a wee while ago, Sarah, and now it's bright. It's brightened up a little bit, but the heavens have, well, they were chucking it down, but they have now settled a bit. So there we are. I can see that where I have sort of texturised my surface by scrumpling it all up, I've got variegated colour already. And let's just cover everything. There we are. So it's not all a smooth yellow at the moment, so that can go there. I do have some nice things called baby wipes, yeah, so that can go there. We'll cover that up. We'll just give this a little wipe. Hi Julie, good evening. There we are, so that can go there, and then let's just give that a little blast dry, because that's just what has to happen. So Caroline, all I have said so far is that I'm going to be making my, the book box that's got the drawer in it, and but with some different ideas to the one that Sam did the other week, because we all have similar products, but we'll all make items that are unique and in our own way. So the book box comes with some panelled pieces with cutouts like this, and so I've pre-cut some stone paper, scrunched it all up, give it a few wrinkles, and I've just painted over it some pine Lasur liquid. You could use some of the Lasur gels, but I've chosen to work with the liquids because when I can use them also as a wood stain, and that will allow me to also colour my MDF without adding any bulk to it. One of the really nice things about the Mad Hatter's laser products is that the drawers and things fit tightly. There's not much wriggle and wobble room, which is great, but it does mean that when you're decorating you have to be fairly careful about how many layers you add. Otherwise you will find that you can't get your drawers in and out. And so the Leser gels will let me add, the Leser liquids will let me add colour without necessarily adding depth for it. So now I've got the chestnut Leser gel here, which is like a reddy brown, and I will be able to see these. They are transparent colours, so I can add these on top and I will still be able to see through, and it will pick up different areas at different levels. And this is about building colours and building layers. It isn't about necessarily having it all in one thing. But it is a process, and you might think, well, I can just add the one colour, but actually that doesn't work so well, because, well, it just doesn't. This is just the process that does work. And if you use the greens, you can make crocodile skin, or you can add stenciling beforehand, some texture through any of your stencils. So if you've got a crocodile type texture, you can also then make crocodile skin if that's what you want to do. There we are, and we can see that we're adding some colours and things, and we're building, and I can still see through there to the yellow. So there we are. Just mop that, because otherwise we'll have a sticky mess. There we are, and we'll give this a little bit of a dry. So I hope everyone is staying safe and well. Hi Liz, thank you for joining us this evening. So we're just making some stone paper leather effect for decorating the book box with. So I can see now that I'm getting quite a lot of texture. Let me just lift this up a little bit so we can see it a little bit nearer the camera. We can see that I've got I've got some textures and some shading going on. There's no need to be sorry. We all have things to do and lives to live. I'm just always grateful when people choose to spend any time with me when I'm doing these. Talking to myself is perhaps not the best thing in the world to do. Feel free to share the video to places if you want to. That would also be cool. So I just need to let this dry before I add the next layer. If you don't let it have it dry, then of course the colours mix rather than layering. And the intention is to layer the colours rather than having them. Hi Karen. Rather than having them mixing. Not bad. And then we are going to add this one, which is walnuts. Let me make sure I've got the right one. Yeah. we've got walnut, and we don't really want to add ebony at this colour. So this is a much darker colour, a much browner colour, and you can carry on and you can swap between these as you choose to, building your layers and your colours. So it is just a bit of a process. There we are, and we'll add this in. So we're going to have a browny leather effect, and I might add some more of the red on the redder one on top to add into it. There we are. So let's hope this weather behaves itself. It's never quite guaranteed, is it, on the English weather? It's going to do what it should be. There we are. Oops. It's a good effect, Sam. It is a good effect. Alright, we'll add a little bit more of the reddy colour over the top, so you can build your colour. But I can still see through these to see the depths and the different layers as I go. Which is also good. It's incredibly unpredictable at the moment, but you know, we whinge when it's cold, we whinge when it's hot, we whinge when it's dry, and we whinge when it's wet. It's the UK's national pastime, is weather whinging. So this sort of partially soaks in, partially doesn't, sits on the surface, but as I say, it layers the colours so that you get lots of colour tones. And I've chosen to work with, as I say, pine, chestnut and walnut to add, you know, to give myself the faux leather effect that I'm looking for. And so I think I might want it a little bit redder, so I'm just going to add a bit more of the red, and you can carry on then this way, adding, mixing, layering. To your heart's content. And if you really want it very dark, you can add black, but I'm going to not leave it, not have it so very dark, I think. I'm just going to, there we are, like that redder, slightly redder colour. There we are. Have I covered everything? Probably, yeah. Hi Lane, thank you for joining us. No need to be sorry. We all have lives, we all have things we need to do. There we are. Right, excellent. So my baby white can sit over my ring light and dry, and I can use that for other things because it's rather pretty vintagey colours, and that way I'm not wasting it and putting it in the recycling bin. So let's get this lot dry, and then we're going to move over to the box itself. And the box itself has an outer sleeve and an inner storage box. And for me, this is quite a pared back mate this evening. It still will have lots of interest, but it's not got so many add-on bits. I've kept it free of resin pieces and just used the embellishments that come with it and lots of paper pieces. Thank you, Elaine. So there we are. So we now have, that was what it looked like to start with, the plain white side of this. And by the time I've added the 3 layers of colours, this is what I've got. And I'm just going to give this just a little bit more dry, and then pop it safely to the side whilst we get on with constructing, because that can sit there. Level 2, the ground floor. Actually, I won't put them over each other, we'll pop them separate to each other. So we have some pieces. Actually, I do need a bit more of a wipe because I can't be doing with that brown yuckiness under. Good evening, Joan. How are you, darling? I trust you're well. Let me just get rid of that. Hi, Judith. So for the ladies who've just joined, I've just made some faux leather using stone paper and Lasur liquids. But if you've got the gels in similar sort of colours, that will work too. Or you could substitute material, because most faux leather is just cuttable and gluable and doesn't, you know, it won't fray because of the nature of the material. So that's cool. There we are, that's better. That's less icky sticky. So as you can see, I've got lots of bits cut out. So let me deal with my papers, because of which I've got lots, and pop those out of harm's way. So the book box, storage box, has an outer sleeve formed from two baseboards which are identical and 3 pieces like this. So let's find some glue. And it is very self-explanatory, it has to be said. So I've just literally got some glue here, she says, in a little fine nozzle applicator. So I'm just going to add my glue, pop that over there so you can see what I'm doing. There we are. And you need glue on all of these tags, so just bear with. The individual story boxes I did decide to make up ahead of the live, because I thought adding another 6 pieces to it might drive everyone to distraction and beyond. And I'm doing this because I know that I'm not going to be adding colour to my to the inside of my piece, because I don't want any extra bulk from doing that. Okay, and let's just add this. So just where I need the glue, cool. So that piece is going to sit into there, and then we'll rinse and repeat. Yep. There we are. So that piece is going to go into there. Now I've just got a damp paintbrush. I'm just going to wipe off the excess in there before wriggling this into place on top. Generally, if you get it, once you've got one piece lined, the other pieces will line up. There we are. There we are. So we now have, come on, in you go, that piece in there. Okay. And we'll just wriggle my wet brush in there to get rid of that. So I've got papers to cover quite a lot of this, but there are some areas like here that won't be covered by papers and will be visible from the outside. So let me just lift that, and then so this is where I'm going to use the Surgel as a stain. Let's see if I can find a sensible size paintbrush. That'll be a no. Hey ho. That'll do. So that is just the chestnut, and I'm just going to add this. Sorry ladies, it's exhilarating viewing when you can't see. So you can see that this is going to colour my MDF base and the pieces that are going to be visible. Now I could do the whole of the inside with it, but we'll just do that for the time being. Excuse me ladies. So there we are, we'll just add that into there, and it will dry quite quickly. You absolutely can hear rain, Sarah. I set up for the live and the heavens decided to thunder, and it was going to open because I work in a conservatory, and if it gets very distracting ladies, we'll stop and I will repeat the live or do it, you know, as a part 2, but I actually don't think it's too mad at the moment. There we are, we'll just add some of that onto there. Thank you ladies for wishing me the bless yous. So I could take this all through the inside, but, and actually, yeah, in reality I probably would if it was, yeah, if we weren't on a live, but for now we'll just leave it at that. And we'll be coming back to that. Okay, so let's just mop that. Yeah, it's not quite bouncing it down here at the moment, but it's definitely hitting the the roof of the conservatory. So there we are. So whilst that is drying, I have some pieces. She says, sending everything flying. Everything I have all nicely laid out, because that's what happens, isn't it, when you're in the middle of the live. So let us just pop this down. So I'm using, say, Voyages Fantastique papers. They're still fairly easily available, I think, but it's one of the Stamperia ones. But you could probably just as easily wait and use the around the world papers when those are arrive. So I've just got some gathered twigs distress oxide here, and I'm just going to edge the pieces. So this is not a complicated part of the process, fortunately, or not, as the case may be. We'll just give those a little bit of an edge, and then we can do that neatly onto there. There we go. That's the one we want. Let's hope that this is not bunged up. Yes, it is bunged up. So I like the little applicator I was using for doing the MDF, but I need a bit more glue here and it'll take forever. So we'll just debung the bottle, because we all have that happen, don't we? Yeah, it's just designed to make us life difficult. There we are. Okay, so we'll just add a goodly layer. Don't know why that's decided to be. That's because I've got 2 windows open. So hopefully we won't get too many messages coming through, notifications. There we are. Now then, doesn't there we are. We'll just slide that into place. Onto there. Let's move you over. That's the advantage of wet glue, is it allows you that wriggle time. She says. Let's find all the bits and bats and the embellishment pieces that I had. I've got more bits out here than of course I know what to do with, because that's what you do, isn't it? It certainly is. So we'll do these page by page by page. So I've obviously had quite had a little bit of time earlier on just to play with these and to add some bits and pieces, and that's it. Now we've got all the pieces we wanted. So these are all have come from the paper pad, and I'm not going to, because I'm now working on the outside of the project, I can actually add layers without worrying about it causing problems with the drawers. So we're just going to give all of these pieces a little bit of inking to pull it all together. Yes, Sarah, I've certainly done that on more than one occasion. Put my pokey tool through the side of another. I'm sure it will arrive eventually. I mean, certainly when it comes down, it comes down with a vengeance. Oops, she says I've got this flicking every which way now. Ugh, because I left the lid off. So let's just it is a lovely collection. The Around the World, I think, will have hot air balloons in it as well. There we are. And the nice thing about using a paper collection, of course, is that it means that all of the colours are designed to coordinate with each other, which then makes life easier, because you don't need to worry then about things working, things not working. Because they're all clearly meant to go together. I think that most of us are going to end up with and I'm missing a piece. That will be, aha, you see, I knew there was another piece somewhere. yeah, I think that there's just a big rain band coming through, isn't there? You know, and I think the gardens will be the better for it. And the temperature will be a little bit more manageable for those of us who really don't like the heat. Sorry, there's quite a lot of inking and sticking to do. Right, now then, let's see if I can work out how I have this lot laid out, because that'll be the next activity, won't it? Is trying to remember how I had it set out. So, and then I can get it glued in place. Get rid, get rid, get rid. That's going over there, that's going over there. So all I'm doing now is sort of working myself out a little bit of a composition, having it as balanced as I can, and then I'm going to be tucking things in and out. So this one says courage, the future waits with those with the courage to create it. So we're going to have, there we are. I know we had some of these bits. We had that over there, that over there, that over there. We're layering. That can go over there. That's going to sit over there. And you're thinking, well, that's sitting like a bit like an orphan, and I don't normally orphan things, and you would be correct. So we're going to have a little bit of that underneath it, and this is why I am layering my pieces, so that that piece is no longer sitting orphaned, and that needs to sit under there to link that to that, to that, to that, to that, and go back up there a little bit. That can go there, that can go there. So we want a piece, and let's get these up the right way, because otherwise no doubt we'll stick it down the wrong way, and that will not have me as a happy girl, because there we are. There we are. There we go. That can go there. That can go there. We've got half a piece there. We've got half a piece underneath there. And we've got some more bits. So how did I have these? I suspect I had another piece there, linking that and that and that, and that can go there, that can go there, that can go there, and that can go there. Right, we've sort of got a composition I vaguely like, so let's get gluing. Now then, eeny, meeny, miny, that's number 12, so that can sit there, up there. That is our next piece. So when you're doing things like this, you know, it's good to lay it out sort of approximately where you want the pieces, and then you can glue in your layers. There's nothing worse than putting a big piece into place and then actually realising that you need to add some more pieces to it, and then you can't lift it. Yeah, they're in Voyages Fantastique, Joan, which is an old collection. It is absolutely an old collection. I think it's important that we use what we have. It would work, I think, with Round the World. I don't think there'll be a problem with it working with Round the World. Actually, Round the World, although they're telling you it's a new collection, I can absolutely assure you that it's very much not a new collection. It's a revamped collection from actually 5 or 6 years ago, before they did 8x8 papers and before any of the extra add-on pieces came to air. Hi Stacey, I am making the book box that has the slide out drawers unit, and this is currently the back of it. And all I've done is chopped up pieces of paper from the collection. Let's pop you reasonably central. Worked out where I want my pieces, and so I can layer things up how I want them. There we are. That has to go there, so that can go up a bit, that can go down a bit. So that's what I'm doing. Who was their name to Around the World? Joan, I don't understand, sweetheart. Can you? Was their name to Around the new collection is called, well, there's two new collections out. One of them is sunflowers, and the other is called Around the World. But Around the World has got lots of different imagery. It's not overtly steampunk. There we are. No, it wasn't Antonis at all. Antonis's first collections was a mechanical fantasy. So Around the World predates Antonis being part of the Stamperia design team. Completely predates him being part of the Stamperia design team. Yeah, I seriously have been around that long, which is maybe not such a bad thing, but hey ho, there we are. Yeah, let's get that. I mean, that is correct. That's going that way. That's going that way. So that one can go in there. I actually want that further down, so there we are. There we are. And I could add metal cogs and embellishments to this quite happily, but I'm not going to. That is 10. It's with that way. So there we are. Let's just pop you down there. Pop you down there. And then let's read. You see, you never get them in exactly the same places a second time, that's for sure. And I think when I first laid this out, I actually had a piece of this tucked into there. So there we are. So you don't like the sunflowers collection, Julie? I think it's a bit of a mismatch of several older collections, to be fair. So you can see that actually by chopping stuff up and layers up, that just needs to be straightened up. You can, and not being afraid to chop elements up, you can actually make a single element go quite a long way. So we might. We've got half a piece here, so we might, I think that might, let's just straighten that because it's a bit on the wonky donk. There we are. Oops, she says that can go onto there, that can go onto there. And then we might have a little play at this point, because I don't want to cover that, but I do want to link this piece. So let me just take a bit of that. There we are, that's looking better. And we might So we've got too big a piece there, so let's just take that. And actually we still don't want quite so much, but I just want a little element tucked underneath there, so you can see just how I'm using my imagery and I'm not afraid to cut it up. Let's get that up the right way. There we are. But I can link all of my pieces, and I don't know whether I want that there, and if I want that there, then I might want that there. So let's do that, but I can cut another piece as I want to. So there we are. I'm going to pop that there. There we are. And get that round the right way. There. Cool. And I might yay, I like that. So there we are. That can go into there. Let's give that and she hasn't, you see, I haven't glued that piece down, so no wonder it's not sticking when you haven't put any glue on it. 5, 6, and that's 12 up there. There we are. So we've layered all of our pieces. That can go onto there. So hopefully that's that bit done. Okay, so that is actually the back of the box. So let us now do some shenaniganing. So that piece is going to sit into there, and I'm just going to fold that down there. So I cut it to the correct height, but I have just left it there. So I play, Stacey, and before the live I sort of knew where I was going, but generally I'm layering. So I've got, let me turn this over, so I've got a cross, and I know what, so when I'm starting, when I'm doing something like this, I layer the cross pieces, and then I wanted other things underneath, so I then start tucking stuff underneath without gluing anything in place. And once I've got the big pieces in, I then tuck all of the extra other bits in place, if that sort of makes sense. I'll talk you through it better, I think, when I do the front, so you can understand my slightly bizarre brain. Because I accept that my brain is ever so slightly bizarre. So that is going to go. So that, yes, I will have the flowers round the right way if I do that, because that would also not be such very good. So when you're doing things like this that are three-dimensional and have a definite orientation, you just need to be mindful with your papers that that's what's going to happen. So if I turn that round that way, because that's going to be down, I can now slide that into place. Now I cut out, and that might have been a mistake, to have separated them all out. The blue is easy. Some words from the paper. Right, so let's just get the words right. I think beef, spongy and cheese adventure. So there we are. Excellent. We've now found the correct sets of words. It's really difficult when it comes to counter layout. There's only so much space that you can have. And so some of the stuff that we write will barely make it onto onto show, and some of it So that's going to be the right way around. And some of it will get shown for about 30 seconds. But we can then post stuff on social media as well, before and afterwards. So, yeah. There we are. So that's going to go over there. So I've done the top and the bottom one so that they're reasonably evenly spaced, top and bottom, and at the sides. And then this is going to allow me to pop the third element in between. There we are. So that one can go into there. Okay. So now we can pop that there and repeat said process and get this up the right way. And you can hear how tight that piece is into there, but that's okay. But you're also going to end up with me doing the live next week, because I've had a break, because I've had a bit of a busy life. And that's cool, because life's important. But it has meant Sam's done quite a lot of lives recently, so she's having a well-deserved break the next week or so, while I do the lives. There we are. I think we're going to be over an hour, but hey ho, the joy of this group is that it actually doesn't matter. We can continue until oops, sorry if that's made everyone go distinctly seasick. I do apologise. So that's now facing the right way. There we are. So if at first an idea isn't observed, there is no hope for it. I think each is for different people, and did I think I would ever be able to do this? Not in a million miles. Am I inherently technologically phobic? Oh, absolutely. If it's going to go wrong, you can guarantee it will go wrong. But bit by bit by bit by bit, it becomes easier. It is just a question of building up your confidence. There we are. Yeah, it's taken me a long time, but actually I've stopped stressing now for lives. But it did take me a goodly while. So that will do into there. That there. Yeah. Now I happen to know that I sliced off a little bit too much there, so I'm just going to fold that edge over a little bit to disguise the fact that I have chopped off a little bit more than I intended, but I didn't have another piece of that paper, so there we are. And if you didn't know, it wouldn't have been an issue, would it? So that's going that way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way, that way. Excellent. Good. Now, and just give that a little bit of glue down. There we are. It's not even finished yet, but thank you very much. And so some of this is about just looking at the papers and seeing what you've got and what will fill the spaces and the space that you've got to fill. Yeah. Cool. There we are. Good night, Joan. Lovely. There we are. So let's do that. 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 So, excellent. So let us tackle the next bit. So I'm going to be adding this. Now, Sam, can you just let me know? I've got an extra pack, so am I meant to be using both of these or just one of these? If you let me know while I carry on. I might just have an extra bit in out doing the washing. Oh dear, I wouldn't get very one on each side. Well, we're not going to put one on the back because I haven't done a piece of but that sort of makes sense. So I can cut myself another piece of stone paper for the back of it if I want to, but I've sort of, because that would be far too logical, wouldn't it? Far too logical to have one for the front and one for the back. Goodly amount of that. There we are. So that's on there. There we are. Okay, now then, that piece is going to go on there with our stone paper on top of it. So let us add a goodly amount of glue. To here. Can go onto there. It's definitely still raining here. You can hear it. We've always got loads of papers, but it doesn't stop us wanting to buy more. I mean, that's just the rule of the other way of the world for every crafter, isn't it? Yeah, want more. You see something new and you think, oh, I like that. I could do X, Y, and Z with that. So there we are. And so the story carries on. And suddenly you've got no room for anything else in your life. But hey ho, it's all good. It's all good. So there we are. Let us just wriggle our piece of faux leather that we made into place. you want to do a fake front on a canvas. Okay. I'm not sure I understand what you mean, but I'll put my brain into that when we're not live. So there we are. Oh, she says, icky sticky mucky. Right. So, when I was thinking about the front composition, I've got a well, and that makes it slightly easier. So I laid it out, and I found this piece of paper. Let's pop it up the right way, and there is a right way because it says Voyages Fantastique, even though the two balloon bits are either side, and I laid that down. That is my biggest piece. And then I wanted to have the train, cabinet of curiosities, and I had some other bits and pieces, so that is dimensional there. And I could just have left it like that, and then I thought, so let's just pop that onto there, because these pieces come in the kit, and that onto there, and see where we go. So he looks lost there on his own, so we're going to stick those under there to centralize those, and then he just looks like he's plonked on there. So we're going to add that there, and this piece here. So now my pieces are all linked together. So does that make sense as to how I was thinking? So before I do anything else, I'm just going to give these two pieces a little bit of additional colour with this, and this will just add some colour, but it won't cover the etchings because it's a thin liquid, and it can sit there and soak in and dry, and then we'll mop that up. See, what we'll do is we'll take the key face, which I'm going to use elsewhere rather than wasting all of that, and we'll pop that there, so that can sit there, and then we'll mop that up for the moment, because otherwise I will get myself into a real pickle. And then I can wipe my hands and move this into the centre of my piece. So now I know where I want everything, and I can now start layering. So that was my thought process as to how I was layering this up. And I now want to ink it. I think this might have come from the 8x8 pad of paper. It might have done. So that's going to go there. That piece is going to go in there. This is a die cut chipboard piece from the collection I just happened to find lurking around, because you never quite know what's in my stash. There we are. That can go there and there. I do have a brain. I can sometimes use it. There we are. So I've tucked that underneath there. There we are. We'll pop that there. We know that we're going to put this there. So this is the same process. So I've worked out where I want to put my things. And I'm actually going to deliberately leave a gap there and just drop you down a little bit. Leave that there. And then that can go underneath there. So I've now got a layout that I like and that I am happy with, and then I can start actually gluing things into place. So that can go there, because that's where I want that piece. if I glue this in, it's not going to be a problem. Because it's going to be linked into there. Let's just go you round. So you're upright, you're going to go there, you're going to there, you're going to go there. So let me now lift these pieces. You absolutely can, if that's what suits you. It will sew beautifully. It's quite hard work sewing it, Sam. I have to say, it's quite tough. You do need to be aware of that. It's not, and you need to treat it like almost like you would leather, and that's punch your holes with it. And of course, obviously, if you're going to wash it, then you need to make sure whatever you've put on top is, of course, waterproof. Now, some of the lasers are waterproof once they're set. So the browns are. Some of the more vibrant colours are absolutely not. Not waterproof, so just be aware of that when you're. That's conveniently got text on it, so there we are. We might pop that up the right way then. When you're working, you'll need a good heavy needle for your sewing machine. It really is very, very heavy and tough to get through. Having done it, it's not my recommendation. It will work. It will work. There we are. So there we are. So let's just give all of those a little glue down. And then we can pop these beautifully intricate filigreed plates on. And I'm lucky that I've got a paper that's got markings that I can use to, to help line up the pieces. There we are. So there. Cool. So that is the outside. Now I can carry on and I can add ink around it, or I can add waxes if I want to, but actually I'm going to leave it, I think. Oh, and that's wow. Okay, so we have now book box outside sleeve. Right. Have we got all of the pieces? Now this, it's not stuck together, ladies, is the insert. So before I have a complete mess, I'm going to stick, let me lift the trays out, we'll leave that over to there. That there. That can go there. As I say, this isn't stuck together. That can go there. That can go there. And that can go there. Jenga tower to the right. So, that must have been meant to be on something. We'll worry about that. So, let me just pop some of this out of the way. If I pop those over there, out of the harm's way, we can centralise into here. So the insert for the book box is this little lot. So let me dismantle. so you can see how it goes together. Okay. Right. That's it. Okay, so again, it's reasonably self-explanatory. You just need to be aware of where your pull-out piece is going to be. So this piece, I've set my drawer up front to back, so I want my drawer to pull to my left. So I've got this set with my drawer to the left. Now then, where's that? And I have these pieces with the slots sitting where I want them. Thank you very much. We will sort it when we get to that point. So now we're just going to pop this bit together. Well, that's the plan anyway. And you'll notice that I'm putting all my glue on all of these tabs early, because it will start to go tacky, which means it will grab more quickly. Which is the whole purpose of putting your glue on, is that you want it to grab to your, to the surfaces. It certainly is. It just lets it dry, so it's so worth putting your glue on and letting it just have that extra few minutes while you get there. To just does make life much easier, because the grab time, and the glue I'm using actually has quite a quick grab time, but hope someone in the household picks up that phone. I've had two friends with very sad news today, so I think that they're probably going to need a reasonable amount of support. So, but they do know I'm doing the live, so that it wouldn't be practical while I'm doing the live to get to the phone. But there you are. So there we are. Let's just get all of this lot on. Okay, so that piece is going to go into there, and that is going to go into there and down. This piece, let me come back into there, is going to go into there, and then they can go down and in. So if you put your slots in where they have to actually go into each other first, it then helps you pop everything else together, and it makes life easier. Now then, we have these very strange looking pieces, but they have been designed to drop in and align. Okay, so I am just going to pop some glue down there, down there, down there, down there, and down there. And I don't need to glue along the bottom, but you can if you want to, so I will do. And then it's up to you as to how you line these in. So you can line them so that they are both exactly the same, like that, or you can line them so the slots are offset. So I'm going to deliberately offset them because I'm a pain in the ass, really, and because that's what I want to do. Okay, so then you have in your kit 3 pieces like this, and no guesses and no prizes, but they will then slot in. So it's a really good, easy way of partitioning. I swore. Did I really? If so, I apologise, ladies. It wasn't my intention. There we are. Okay. Well, Facebook can tell me off then. There we are. It is after the watershed. Probably not somewhere. Is it after the water? No, it's not after the watershed. So anyway, it's not very often that I will use an expletive of any shape or description. There we are. So that one can slot into there. Well, I'm sure if you've heard it, you'll be right. There we are. Shuffle that one into there. So there we are. So we now have our box, and that can sit to dry, because otherwise we'll end up in a pickle. So as I say, I have pre-set some of these up. So where's my thing? There we are. And we'll need to do a little bit of cutting. So I could take my Lacquer gel and, yeah, yes, I know, Sarah, it's all right. And I could paint my boxes if I wanted to, so they're all coordinating. And I might yet do that. I don't know, on the other hand, I might not. So I've just cut these pieces to size, and I know the notch isn't cut out at the moment, and that's just fine. We'll sort that one out in a minute. And this definitely comes from an 8x8 paper pad. There we are. Pop that into there. Pop that into there. That can sit down. Munch my muffin. Okay, fair enough. Whatever. Oh, she says, let's find an alternative. I treated myself to a new one of those. So I know I can now just take my craft knife and take that piece out, because otherwise it's really difficult to cut those edges out. Here we are. Because I know, you know, drawing it, you always end, when you draw around it, you always end up with it slightly bigger than you need it to be. Whereas if you glue it on and then take a craft knife to it, you will cut it out to the size of the box. There we are. Pop that into there. Okay. Martin, what are you talking about? are you talking about? There we are. I'm going to say these are all just pieces. There we are. You can go there. Let's just reasonably straighten that up. So yeah, you'll find it easier then you can tip these upside down and literally just run your craft knife around the half circle in the MDF. You need a nice fresh blade and take those edges out, and here we are. So that's 2 boxes. 1 and 2. The one thing I would say is with the smaller boxes, they look almost square, but they're not quite. So if when you're putting the smaller ones together, the little of the 3, it doesn't seem to be like lining up properly. Swap your sides around. Well, I'm glad we're having an entertaining afternoon, evening. There we are. That can go onto there. Oh dear. Well, it's good. It's good that you're entertained and we're amused. So I know I'm actually going to put, I've got a whole, beneath my table, I've got like an avalanche of disaster, really. Yeah. All sorts of boxes, not quite a Jenga tower, but with all sorts of metal embellishments in it. So I am going to, once I've finished this, ultimately will de-Jenga tile the pile that's underneath my table, and then put the metal embellishments all into place. There we are, what we're looking for. I might be in imminent danger of running out of this glue, but hey ho. All is good in the world. If we do, we have plenty more. No biscuits were no biscuits were harmed during the production of this live at all. One of the headaches with actually doing the live is that you have no idea what naughtiness is going on, and therefore you get a bit lost in the conversations. Oh yeah. So this is the box that I said if they, when you're putting these little ones together, they don't quite look as if they're working very well together. This is the ones where they're not quite square. So just fiddle around and get the front and back and the side on the correct places. And then miraculously, as you'd expect from Wendy, they all then fit together perfectly. Here we are. It's all right, Alison. In this heat, I think we get sleep when we can, because it's been so hot and muggy and not very nice that I think it's just important that we do grab our sleep when we can. There we are. It's approximately in the middle for there. Haven't quite got that on straight, but hey ho, that will do. Might as well carry on with this until it runs out, won't I? And we'll go back to the bigger pot. Don't like waste. There we are. Good. One down. Oh, wow. Why worry? Why worry? We're all adults, aren't we, at the moment, you know, so I think it's perfectly acceptable for it to be conversations that are maybe more adult appropriate. There we are. Now, these are going to be inside the pull-out sleeve, so you could carry on adding more layers, but I definitely wouldn't go with dimensional embellishments, because I think that you'll just struggle to do that. You could, so there we are. So there is our box. Now then, we now need our pesky lasso gel. I'm not going to paint all of it, but there is a little panel here that I do want to cover when I can find my brush that isn't too yucky. And as I say, you could paint the whole of this quite happily. That wouldn't go, it wouldn't go amiss to do that. Let's pop that over there. Now this piece, she says, with a mess. So let's cut. I know this is extravagant, ladies, don't you worry, but otherwise we will have a real pickle on our hands. This piece has to sit centrally on here, and these are going to go over the top. So whilst that dries, we'll pop that over there, and we'll do some gluing. who is messaging me. There we are. Oh no, we won't flood. We're at the top of the hill, and thankfully rain goes down the hill, so we definitely won't flood, darling. But thank you for your concern. So this piece, Stacey, the Mad Hatter sells the MDF on its own. So you buy the MDF kit and then you buy whatever papers you want to decorate them, and if you don't want to use papers, you can paint them beautifully as well. So the choice is yours. So That's Crafty is likely to have the papers in because they stock Stamperia. There are other companies that do, but as both Sam and I are on the That's Crafty design team, that would be our first port of call if we're going out to buy papers, would be to head over to her, to the That's Crafty website. Now then, let's just get that aligned nicely. There we are. Then I say this is Voyages Fantastique. If you're struggling to find the papers, I do know of a couple of sites that will almost certainly have them, but will not advertise those online here because this is the live for Mad Hatters, and therefore I try not to actively promote non-house. Yes, darling, Mad Hatters do wonderful MDF kits. That is their, that is their thing, and they are all beautifully well thought out, incredibly well designed, laser cut really quite nice, well, not just really quite nicely, very nicely. And so this piece is now a little bit too big, and that's okay. Now you'll see, so I have a very sharp knife here, so I'm just going to trim that side down. There we are. Hope that it doesn't make it too lopsided. Oh dear, well, never mind, I've let the cat out the bag then, haven't I? I don't think she'll be watching. So on the website there will be some deco art paints which are lovely. Are really lovely. So there we are. So all of the kits that Wendy brings to Create and Craft can be found on the Mad Hatters website. If you can't find it, if you message or leave a comment, then we're pretty, between us, we're pretty good at sorting it out. Lips are sealed. Thanks, Jan. I didn't know, Dad. I hadn't been told I couldn't say anything. There we are. Now then, the fun and the games is to get A onto B and have it all squared up. So, let us take our box, which also looks like it might need a bit of a haircut. There we are. So we'll just give you a little bit of a haircut. This blade is undoubtedly sharp. And for those of you that don't know, I used to be a surgeon in a former life, so I am very used to handling very sharp blades. But it really is the best way for trimming the stone paper. So let us just give that, oh there it is, a little bit of an inking to cover the cut edges. There we are. That's up the right way. That's, oh, yeah, I like it when a plan comes together. Well, I ignored the fact that we could have a panel on the back, so hey ho. So I think you can see there that if you were not very careful and you added lots of bulk, how you would suddenly find that you couldn't get that box inside there. Okay. So we're now in, where's my glue? So we'll endeavour to have you centralised in there. There we are. And not glue bits throughout. So to cover all of this workings and the gubbins and the malarkey from where it's all put together, don't want that on there. We've got this. And this piece now sits conveniently on there. And if I pop that up like that, with a bit of luck, I can now lift that off and it will be reasonably central, she says. It's not reasonably central, so we'll just move that over a little bit so it is reasonably central. It needs to be slightly offset. So let's just make sure we haven't messed around with that too much. Pop that onto there. Excellent. Then we can do the bit, one more bit. That's the wrong colour. There we are. Let's just take that. Take that. There we are. Cool. Right, let's clear that mess out of the way. That can go onto there, that can go there. And that will slide in when it's dry. Okay, so there we are. we have one finished book box. Cabinet of Curiosities with its shelves in the centre of it, decorated background. I'm going to mop that and I will photograph it, and I'm actually going to leave it without a border on there. I think I might, let me have a little see and I'll tell you whether I definitively will leave it or not, because I could actually cut myself another piece of the I might or I might not, another piece of the stone paper and add that into there if I want to. So ladies, that is all we are going to do for tonight. I'm deliberately going to leave that not quite in there because of it still being slightly damp. I'm going to pop my craft knife away safely and that one out of the way. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Oh dear, Jill. Oh no! Please just ask me. For those of you who don't know, Jill is my daughter's boyfriend's mum. So please message me. Don't go buying stuff if you don't need to. I've got more than enough spare lurking in my conservatory. And I think my husband would be very happy to offload some of it. So there we are. Please stay safe. Enjoy the week ahead. I will debate whether I'm going to go live next Sunday or next Saturday. If people have a preference, could you just make a comment, and I will, then I can go either which way. So good night ladies, take care, stay safe, and see you next week.